Hi everyone, this is Chris Gray. I know you guys are used to videos on all natural cosmetics and making salves and extracts, but today I am going to be showing you step by step how to make your own Bendy plushie from Bendy and the Ink Machine. And this is Bendy. He is an 18-inch plushie. Plush. Back in my day, we called them stuffed animals. But my grandson talked me into making him one of these. I wasn't sure what a Bendy was, but after a lot of research on the internet, I figured out who he was. And today we're going to go step by step on how to make him. And there is Bendy's backside. This wasn't too difficult of a project. Let's start out with what you're going to need. The first thing that you are going to need is your fabric. 2/3 of a yard of black fleece and 1/3 of a yard of white fleece. You don't necessarily have to use fleece. I chose fleece because it's a little stretchy, it's easy to work with. If you do want a different fabric, I would make sure that it has a little bit of stretch to it, but not a lot. I probably wouldn't want to use fake fur because it's just really difficult to work with. The next thing that you are going to need is about a half a yard of Wonder Under. Wonder Under is a fusible webbing that we use to put applique's face on. The other thing that you're going to need is a bag of polyfill. Just a small bag will be enough to do him. Okay, for a full list of everything that you're going to need your 2/3 yard of black fabric, 1/3 yard of white fabric, half a yard of the Wonder Under. Make sure you have a good sharp pair of scissors, some black thread, and some white thread. Make sure that you get a good quality thread so you don't have to mess with it breaking on you. I personally use Coats & Clark's thread, Dual Duty Plus. Also, you are going to need a piece of poster board, just a standard size, a good number 2 pencil, an iron, and a sewing machine that does a zigzag or satin stitch. I use a Singer, but any sewing machine that has a zigzag on it will work. Okay, this is where you are going to get your big piece of poster board out, and you can see here that I've drawn out all of the Bendy pieces. Just used a number 2 pencil. That kind of gives you an idea of what size your pieces should be. Feel free to copy that and blow it up on a copy machine if you like to. And once then we start cutting the pieces out, and you're going to cut each individual one. You don't necessarily have to use poster board. You can use tissue paper if you want to use that for a pattern instead of your poster board. Sometimes the poster board's a little difficult to trim. Once I got the Bendy body cut out, I noticed that he was a little thick in the middle. So I folded that piece in half, and you can see here where the pencil is, I went ahead and cut out a little more under the arm. Here's the piece cut out after I've taken that out from under the arm, and you notice that there is a straight line there in between his legs. That's where his tail's going to go in. Okay, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later. Now that you've got all of your parts cut out, you're going to get out your fabric and lay them all out on your fabric. Make sure that your fabric is double folded. Okay, and it tells you on the pieces you're going to need 2 bodies, 2 tails, 2 black eyes. Okay, and go ahead and pin those down and cut them out of your fabric. This is where it might have been a little bit handy to use tissue paper because it is a little difficult to pin that poster board on there, but you can get it done. Okay, once you're done with the black, then you are going to lay your white out and lay all of your pieces out. It doesn't really matter on fleece which direction these pieces are laid, just so it's double thick because you've got to need 2 pieces of each one of these, except for the hand. And you notice that we're going to need 4 hands. So the way that I did this was the very end of my fabric where it's already folded. I folded it over again, and you can see there you've got 4 layers thick, which if your scissors are good and sharp, you should be able to cut through that okay. And that way you can go ahead and cut out your 4 hands. Okay, now that we've got all of our pieces out there, we're going to get the rest of our pieces cut out of the white. Now our next thing is the Wonder Under, and you're going to notice that your Wonder Under has 2 different sides. It's got a paper side and then it's got a rough side. Now you can do this either way. I like to lay my pieces on the rough side. There's a couple ways you can do that. You can pencil around your pieces and go ahead and cut them out, which is the way I've done mine. The other, you can draw them onto the paper side as well, but you just need to make sure that your pieces are upside down if you do that, so that they're going to line up correctly. I just went ahead and drew around my pieces. The pieces that you're going to need out of the Wonder Under are your face and your eyes and your mouth. And you can see here I did the face, and then I drew around the eyes. You can see my pencil marks here. Then I went ahead and cut them out and laid them on top of my fabric with the sticky side down. Okay, your paper side is going to be up. Now the next thing that you want to do, per the instructions on the Wonder Under, is make sure that your iron is setting on the wool setting. I go ahead and just flip it all the way up as high as it'll go, up to cotton. Okay, and then you are going to iron your paper side. Make sure it's the paper side or it's going to stick to your iron. So with your paper side up, you want to put your iron on there for 14 to 15 seconds. A little longer if you want to. Just make sure that your iron's good and hot, and that Wonder Under is stuck down really, really well. Now we're going to go over the other way that you can do this with the mouth. And the way you do that is you just go ahead and cut your mouth out of the Wonder Under itself. Then get you a piece of fabric and iron it to the fabric. Okay, once you get it ironed on, then you're just going to cut it out, and you'll just be cutting it out of the fabric. Okay, now once all of your pieces have your Wonder Under on the back of it, our next thing that we're going to do is peel that paper backing off. Sometimes that backing can be a little bit difficult to get off. If you have trouble with peeling it off, you see that the Wonder Under is not sticking to the fabric, then go ahead and repress it. You can tear the paper a little bit sometimes to get it off of there a little easier. So once you get all of those off, you're going to peel the backing off of all of your pieces that you ironed on, your eyes, your face, your mouth. Okay, and then the next thing that we are going to do is to put the pieces on Bendy's face. So go ahead and put your white face piece, line it up good where you want it. Don't worry too much if your edges aren't completely perfect where you've cut them. That's okay. We're going to fix that in the next step. Okay, so once you get his face where you want it, then you're going to use your hot iron again and go ahead and iron the face down. Make sure that your iron is good and hot and that it's sticking down good. Okay, then you're going to take the eyes and the mouth, place them where you want them, and again, make sure that you've got them exactly the way you want them before you press them down, because this is going to be permanent. Okay, once you get them on there where you want them, go ahead and get your iron again and press all those pieces down. Keep your iron on there for a good 15, 20 seconds. Maybe a little bit longer if you want to, but we got to make sure that they stick down good. Now that we've got all those out of the way, the next thing that you're going to need is your sewing machine. Make sure that your sewing machine has a zigzag. Now the way mine is, I've got to set it to where it zigzags and has I set it on a 4-inch wide zigzag, and I do a buttonhole stitch so that it's a satin. Some fancier sewing machines, mine's kind of plain. Some of the fancier ones are going to have a satin setting. Okay, and then you want to put that under your sewing machine foot with that edge right in the middle of your zigzag foot, and just start your satin stitch and zigzagging all the way around the outside of the face. This shows the zigzag already going. Okay, now that we are done with that, we still have our white thread on the sewing machine, so we're going to get out the white bow tie, the actual bow tie piece itself. Okay, take your poster board off of it and check your settings on your sewing machine. You want just a little bit over a 1/2 inch seam allowance on all of this. I use the line that's outside of my presser foot that's made onto the sewing machine. Okay, and then you are going to sew starting in the middle of your bow tie, because you want to leave a spot, okay, where you can turn it right side out, right sides together. You're going to sew all the way around it, leaving just about maybe a 2 or 3 inch spot so that you can turn it. So don't go all the way around. Leave, 2 or 3 inches so you can turn it right side out. Okay, now that you've got that sewn, make sure that you clip all of your edges. You're going to cut your corners, okay, so that you don't have a bunch of bulky, so you have a good, nice, sharp point on your corners. Okay, and then just go ahead and turn that right side out after you've clipped all 4 of your corners. And you're going to see here that you've got your opening where you've turned it right side out. Okay, and the next thing that we're going to do is sew that opening shut. And we left it in the middle of the bow tie because then we've got the little bow tie piece that's going to cover that so nobody's going to see it. So just stick it on your sewing machine and do a straight stitch just right across it. Make sure that you back up, back and forth at the beginning and the end to hold your stitching. Now once you have that sewn, then I want you to get the center bow tie pieces, and you also cut 2 of those. So you want both of those, you want them right sides together, and you're going to sew 1 strip down each side of it, leaving both ends open. Okay, just down each side of it, and then you're going to turn that right side out. And once you get it turned right side out, then you are going to fold those 2 ends together. Okay, just fold it in half. Okay, just like that. And what we're going to do is sew across the end. Once you just a straight stitch right across the end of it to make like a loop. Okay, once you get that sewn, then you're going to turn it right side out. And you can see your seam is going to be on the inside. And then you're going to take your other piece of the bow tie and just slip that ring around it just like you would a napkin. Now that you've got your bow tie the way you want it, right now we're just going to set that over to the side. And we are going to change our sewing machine back to black thread. And you want to set your sewing machine back to that zigzag stitch or your satin stitch, making sure it's as wide as you can get it. Set it on zigzag and 4/5 width or your satin stitch, however your sewing machine is set up. And then we are going to work on Bendy's mouth. And we're going to do a satin stitch or zigzag all the way around the edge of the mouth, keeping the edge of the mouth in the center of our presser foot. So then this is what Bendy's mouth is going to look like when it's done. And then next we're going to be working on his eyes. And if you notice when I cut out my eyes, they're a little bit rough. Okay, but that's alright because I'm going to make up for it when I do my satin stitch around the eye. So for a guide, one of the first things I want to do is grab my pencil and I'm just going to draw an edge there where I want his eye to be to smooth it up a little bit. So I've drawn my marks there on his eye to guide me. And then we are going to start zigzagging around the eye itself. And I start at the very bottom of the eye and start zigzagging around. Now, when you get to those corners or the tips, you want to put your needle all the way down into the fabric, lift your presser foot, turn your fabric, and then put your presser foot back down. You know, if you've never done any kind of applique before with your sewing machine, you might want to test this out on a scrap piece of fabric until you feel comfortable with those corners. Okay, but you're just going to zigzag all the way around. And then when you get to the edge, you want to move your zigzag down to about a size 2 across because he's got this little spot that goes down past his eye a little bit, and you don't want it quite as wide as the rest of your zigzag. Now I've drawn it on mine, so I've got kind of a guide there to go by, but you can see how the little zigzags go down at the outer edges of his eyes. And now that you've got your zigzag the way you want it, okay, next we are going to work on his mouth because we've got his teeth yet to do. And Bendy has 8 teeth. So you want to draw right down the center and then split it into fourths with your pencil and then a line in the center of each one of those, making it even across with his 8 teeth. Okay, so we don't want those quite as wide when we go to sewing those. So we are going to change our settings on our machine. You can either move it down to like a 2 width, or if you've got just a straight stretch stitch, you can do that as well. However your machine's, but you just don't want it quite as wide as the rest of it. So go ahead and sew each one of those lines from top to bottom. Okay, and then you've got all of the applique done on his face. So next we are going to work on his hands because it's got a little bit of zigzag or stitching on the back of it as well. Okay, now you can do this a couple ways. The way I did it, I drew my lines. You've got 3 straight lines down the back of Bendy's hand, and you can see those are about 2.5 inches is about what you're going to go with those. Depending on, you know, what size it is, but you've got your 3 lines kind of like Mickey Mouse does. Okay, once you get those drawn on there, then the next thing that you want to do is stitch those. Okay, now the way I did it, like I said, I used a straight stitch, and which does kind of just a straight embroidery stitch or stretch stitch down the back of them, so it kind of looks like embroidery. You can try a 2 width. Just be really careful with that because with your machine not moving very quickly, a lot of times it will pull your fabric right down into the presser foot and into the feed dogs and get it stuck. So you really have to be careful with that and keep it moving if you're just going to do a zigzag. Another trick is maybe to put a piece of paper on the back of it and then just tear the paper off once you're done stitching. Okay, so once you've got those stitched on, then you are going to get Bendy's other hand. Okay, you're going to switch your thread over to white because this is going to require white thread, and switch your bobbin. Okay, and then you're going to take Bendy's hands and put them right sides together. Make sure that your nice side is down, so you've got your right sides together on both of your hands. Okay, and then you're going to sew around the outer part of the hand, leaving the top of the hand or around the wrist area open so that you can turn it. Okay, and then once you're done sewing that, make sure that you go back and forth at the ends really well to hold it. Next, you're going to clip all of your little corners. And this is so that when you fold it right side out, all of those little points are going to come down. So just clip it as close as you can to the thread to your seam without cutting your seam. And do that at each one of those points. Okay, then you're going to turn your hands right side out. Okay, making sure that you push up all the little fingers. Okay, and then we are going to work on that bow tie while we've still got that white thread on our sewing machine. And you're going to put that bow tie just where you want it, and then pull the top part of the ring over to the side, and we're going to sew on the bow tie and the bottom part of the ring, through making sure you don't go through that top ring. Just pull it over at the side and sew that down to the front of your bendy. Go back and forth over it several times so it'll be good, hold it really well. Once you get that sewn, then clip your threads and you can pull the top of your bow tie right over that where nobody's going to see that seam. Now that we've got the bow tie sewn on the front, we're going to take the bow tie and fold it towards the center and pin it on both sides just to make sure that it stays out of our way and we don't get it caught up in our seams. Okay, so get your bow tie pinned, and then we're going to go back to our black thread again. Okay, and we are going to work on the tail. So get your tail piece, and we're going to put right sides together, and we are going to sew all the way around the outer edge of the tail, leaving it open at the very end of the tail so that we can turn it. Now, turning these tails can be a little difficult. Make sure that you've clipped all of your little points off and that you trim both of your inner, corners so that you can turn it wrong side out, or right side out well. Now, these little guys I found when I was in school, and they are really, really nifty. I think I got them at Nancy's Notions or something like that. They're wonderful at turning things right side out. If you don't have them, good luck. Use a pencil. Do whatever you can do to get that turned right side out. With these, you just slip your piece on one side, clamp them together, and then starting in the center there, start pushing it over to the other side. And as it pushes it over, then it turns it right side out for you. I'm not sure what these things are called, but they're wonderful for turning things right side out where you only have one open area. I use them a lot. So once then that you've got that turned right side out, you want to take it off of there and stick a pencil, if you need to, up into those points on that arrow to make sure that, your points are out good. Okay, and then we are going to go ahead and start stuffing Bendy's tail. And you're going to have to use a pencil, more than likely, to get that stuffing up in there. Make sure that you stuff it good up in the top points of the tail. Okay, stuff the entire tail except for just an inch or two at the very end of it. Because next we're going to sew that onto Bendy. So we want to leave part of it not stuffed so we can sew through that. And now you can see where we had that little slit in the pattern up there by Bendy's bottom. Okay, you want to go ahead and cut that out in your fabric. Okay, then you're going to fold that whole main piece in half on the back piece, and you're going to put the tail in between those pieces that you're folding. Okay, with right sides together, put your tail in there, fold your other piece over it. It's kind of like a dart. Okay, and make sure that you pin it really well with all three of them together. Okay, and then you're just going to sew that little bitty slit. Start there at the top above it, on your fabric, and go on and just sew it straight down to in between his legs. Okay, make sure that you go kind of slow so that you don't break your needle because you're going through several pieces of fabric there. but you're just going to do a straight stitch and sew it right straight down. Okay, now that we have that done, the next thing you're going to do is take your front piece and your back piece and completely put them together, right sides together, and you're going to pin all the way around the top part of it. Actually, I just pinned both pieces together. Once you've got it pinned well, then we're going to sew on the top all the way around, starting at the tip of the arm and going all the way around the head and then back down the top of the other arm. Okay, just the top portion. Once you get that done, have it all done, then we're going to work on the other side. Okay, so make sure that everything is good and pinned before you start on your bottom side. Okay, and then when we start on the bottom side, we're going to start on the side of the leg, kind of where that yellow pin is over to the right, just a little bit above it. Okay, you can go ahead and sew from the tip of one of your arms all the way around, or around to the side, but you want to make sure that you leave a good 2, 3, 4-inch slit in the side of his leg that is not sewn. Okay, and then once you do that, you're going to sew all the way around the rest of it. You're going to sew all the way around to the other arm, leaving the openings on the ends of the arms. Okay, now once you've got it all sewed, then you're going to want to go through and make sure that you clip all of your corners and make sure that you've clipped all of your inward corners and your seams. The next thing we're going to do is turn Bendy right side out. So starting with your head, and then each piece, get him all turned right side out. When you get your head, you might want, after you get him right side out, you might want to stick a pencil up inside the head to kind of point his ears out the way that they should be. As long as you trimmed off the tip of those ears, they should come to a nice point. Okay, go ahead and unpin your bow tie now that you've got him sewn together. Okay, and here he is, all right side out. The next thing we're going to do is put his hands on. Okay, so you want to go ahead and get your hands, and go ahead and stuff your hands, leaving a little bit of room at the top. Once you're stuffing all the way up to the edge, you want it kind of down in his hand. Okay, because the next thing we're going to do is fold that top over, because Bendy's got a little cuff on his gloves or his hands. So you want to fold that top just a little bit over. Change your sewing machine back over to white thread, and you're going to straight stitch all the way around that fold. Doesn't matter, just get it as close to the edge as you can, because you're going to be zigzagging over it. Make sure you don't sew the hand together, though. You want to go all the way around it. Okay, so it should look kind of like this when you get done. The next thing you're going to do is take Bendy's arm and shove it down into the hand. Okay, as long as he's not stuffed yet, so while he's still flat. Okay, and then you want to switch back to zigzag, and you want to zigzag all along that rough edge of your cuff, and that's while you're zigzagging it, you're going through all of the layers, okay, so that it sews his hand on and zigzags over that edge. Okay, the next thing that we want to do is start stuffing your Bendy. So that side that you had that was open, you want to go ahead and start shoving stuffing in there, stuff him up to his head, stuff down his arms, into his legs and feet, make sure that you have him all stuffed, and then you're going to have your open area. Shove the stuffing down in there as much as you can. Get a needle and black thread, make sure you knot the end of it, and you're going to do a hidden stitch. Okay, you're going to take just a little bit through on one side and pull your thread through. Then you're going to go to the other side, directly across from where your needle came out, and do it again on the other side, and then go back to the front side, back to the back side, continue zigzagging across here, and you can see it makes a zigzag in the thread. As you're going, you're going to pull that thread tight, and that's going to close him up to where you can't see the stitching. Okay, so just keep doing that back and forth down the sides just a little bit at a time and pulling it closed as you go. And then eventually you're going to have a nice closed seam that doesn't show any seams on it. Make sure that you knot your thread off really good, tie it really tight, um, slip it down through him, and trim your threads. Now the next thing I'm going to do is this bow tie. It's if you're making it for yourself, you can probably skip this step. Since it's my grandson, I know he can be a little tough on bow ties. So I am just going to take some white thread here, and I'm going to sew all the way around the outer edge of my bow tie knot, just to hold it a little bit tighter. So if he yanks on that bow tie, I know that it's not going to tear the fabric or come off. And there is your Bendy. He is all finished. You know, if you like today's video, make sure that you like us, like this YouTube video, leave whatever comments that you want to leave. There's Bendy all finished up, and there's his backside with his little devil tail. Now, normally we don't do videos like this, but I may be doing some more because my grandson has requested a few more stuffed animals, or excuse me, plushies, as he calls them. We do have some other videos on YouTube, mostly about all natural cosmetics, lotions, soaps, which is actually what we primarily do. So do check us out. Check out our Natural Qualities YouTube videos. You can also check out our websites, naturalqualities.net and cmqcosmetics.com. Thank you for watching today, and if you've got any questions, be sure and let me know. Thank you.